I'm going to debunk the myth that the cloud is good for side projects and show you a better way to host your projects. I spent a lot of time working with and setting up cloud infrastructure from POCs to enterprise projects.
Every year we get personal thank you letter from cloud provider for hitting Q1 revenue target. Their Q1 revenue target.
This ranges from serverless setups to full Kubernetes clusters across AWS, GCP, and Azure. With that in mind, I regret buying into the serverless hype around 2021. At that time, most of my side projects were based on serverless tools from AWS, and I missed out on so much foundational infrastructure knowledge in favor of memorizing the made-up names of over 200 AWS services. Each serverless framework has its own terminology across the cloud vendors that obfuscates what's actually going on behind the scenes, so it isn't a great place to start if you actually want to understand how things work.
This is serverless. This is your brain on serverless.
Now, to atone for my serverless sins, my latest public hosting approach is going to be bare metal and use my old gaming PC as an Ubuntu server. This approach is more cost effective, gives me more opportunities to learn, and gives me more open source tooling options. I'll walk you through how I did my setup, how you can set up your own public home server, and how to host your own custom projects. Currently, I've moved my personal site to my home server so I can stop paying AWS $15 per month, and in the future I'm planning on migrating some of my more substantial projects. $15 a month doesn't sound like a lot, but I've had my site up for over 4 years, so I've paid over $400 just in hosting my simple site. If you're hosting any projects, I'd think about how long you're planning on running them and what the long-term cost will be. My new site is just a simple fast API site with some JavaScript for interactivity, but it's a good starting point for testing out this new setup. Let's jump into it. From a high level, the infrastructure will look like this. I'm hosting my apps on my home server, then using a free Cloudflare tunnel to connect my apps from my house to the public internet. The Cloudflare tunnel is a quick way to get my public hosting setup without needing to worry about things like setting up a dynamic DNS service and tuning firewall rules. Long term, I may move off the Cloudflare tunnel, but for now I'm okay with Cloudflare handling the bulk of the security. Pangolin tunnels also looks like a good open source option that I might check out in the future. The next big decision in this setup was going with Kubernetes using microK8s. Kubernetes makes it easy to set up and manage my services. While I don't really need the scalability, it'll make having higher service uptime easier. For example, I can actually add another PC in the future as a backup in case one of the PCs ever needs a repair. As a Kubernetes enjoyer, this setup also lets me play with Kubernetes more. Plus, many companies that I work with also run Kubernetes, so I don't need to learn a whole new set of skills like if I were doing something like managing VMs. Running Kubernetes at home is actually insanely cheap compared to running it in the cloud. The big cloud vendors typically charge a flat rate of around $70 for a managed Kubernetes cluster, and then charge an arm and a leg for additional resources. If we look at GKE Autopilot pricing, it's $32 per month for one CPU. If we were just to compare CPU resources, my gaming PC would cost me almost $400 a month, or almost $5,000 per year. There's a lot of redundancy in GKE that I don't have, but my side projects don't need 5 nines of uptime and cross-region failover. If my power goes out for a few hours and my site isn't up a few times a year, that's okay. I'll run through the steps to set this up at a high level and share some of the resources in the video description if you're interested in doing your own setup. First, you're gonna want to upgrade your gaming PC so you can use the old PC parts to create your server. Or you can just buy an old cheap PC instead. Next, get a USB drive for flashing Linux. You can do this by downloading the Ubuntu server ISO file and then creating a bootable USB by using Balena Etcher. Now install Ubuntu server on the PC by booting with the USB plugged into the PC. Walk through the guided setup steps. During the install process, it will give you the option to install Docker, microK8s, and OpenSSH by default. You'll also want to get the server's hostname so you can SSH into the server with this command. With our server running, we'll need to write some code or use some existing code to deploy our sites. My personal site is open source on GitHub for reference. Then SSH into the server and deploy the code on microK8s. Finally, set up the Cloudflare tunnel and create a domain if you don't already have one. To set up a Cloudflare tunnel, I had to point my existing domain to the Cloudflare DNS, set up the tunnel from the CLI using your server. This gives you access to the cert key and secret token on the server. Then confirm the tunnel is up in the UI and look at the logs of the pod. Last, you may need to wait for the DNS to update. This took about half a day for me. Now you're up and running with your app running on your own hardware. No cutting checks to cloud providers, and you have full control over your core systems. You're also ready to deploy more of your apps with minimal setup and no scaling costs. I'm still early in my setup, but I have a lot of future plans. I want to make improvements to my personal site, migrate my heavier web app from GKE to this server, and look into moving off of Cloudflare tunnels. Let's stop renting our side projects from big tech, and let's own our infrastructure. Start with one old PC and take back some control. Finally, if you're interested in learning about my more complex app that got me thinking about self-hosting due to high GKE autopilot costs, check out this video here.